Wünschst du dir jemanden, der dich versteht wie kein anderer? Jemand, der deine Wünsche wahr werden lässt und mit dir das schönste Abenteuer deines Lebens erleben möchte? Die Commerce-Plattform Shopify revolutioniert Millionen von Unternehmen weltweit. Mit Shopify richtest du im Nu deinen Online-Shop ein, ganz ohne Programmier- oder Designkenntnisse. Dank der effizienten Einrichtung und intuitiven Social-Media- und Online-Marketplace-Integration kannst du über Instagram, eBay und Co. werben und verkaufen. Neue Zielgruppen zu erreichen war noch nie so einfach. Shopify bietet auf einer einzigen sicheren Plattform alle Tools, um dein Online-Business aufzubauen. Kostenlos testen und dein Business der Welt präsentieren. Shopify.de/try besuchen. Einfach shopify.de/try eingeben und loslegen. Made for Germany. Powered by Shopify.
Every Nigerian must be instrumental to the growth and development of our nation through the use of innovative energy and idea to lead and initiate policies that will sustain the economy and enhance good governance. With all the financial turmoil facing the world, it has become pertinent for exchange of new ideas that will enhance good governance. Please subscribe to our channels, listen to our messages and engage with us. With your support, we can transform the lives of all Nigerians. Welcome to the Season 2 of the NESG Radio.
So we know about the signing of the Petroleum Industry Bill. So this was very well received, and people thought that this would help in bringing investment into the oil and gas sector. So we are now going to talk about deregulation of this sector. So guys, what do we think about oil and gas deregulation? So is it something that needs to be done right away? How should we do it? What are some of the pressing issues in this sector? So we might say that complete deregulation, so completely removing fuel subsidies, might not be the best thing to do because there are going to be negative socioeconomic implications. And in Nigeria, we probably don't have great social safety nets. We don't really have unemployment insurance. We don't really do much in terms of conditional cash transfer. So it might not be the best idea to just completely fuel subsidies. So what are some of the things that we can do in the oil and gas sector in the short term to improve its performance and, just to improve efficiency in that sector?
Oh, thank you, Sherry, for that. So I think there is a need to clearly differentiate between oil and gas sector deregulation and the removal of subsidy. So there are clearly two different processes, and that can go side by side. One can take place, can be the oil sector deregulation, while government will retain subsidy, or government remove subsidy and not actually implement the deregulation of the sector. So what is deregulation of the sector? So it is government removing or ensuring it plays only regulatory role in the activity of the sector, which could mean that government itself can actually also be a player. So what we are saying is, instead of the concept of liberalization, you are saying liberalize the market, play more of a regulatory role, but you can also come in as a player, as we have with the telecommunication sector. It was previously NITEL, as we have NNPC in the oil and gas sector. So we are saying, NNPC, can you play more regulatory role? Then you can set up your company to also be a player. So that is what we are saying with oil and gas deregulation. Then, by this, the Petroleum Industry Act 2001 actually sets Nigeria on that path of deregulating the market and ensuring government plays majorly regulatory role only, while NNPC as a government company would be a player, such as the Mobil, such as the Chevron, such as the Total, and every other player we have in the sector. So that's why we actually observed that NNPC was converted into a private limited liability company. So it has moved from a government, a regulatory role it was playing before to now a private company. So there it can share its shares, it can be listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, is on the plan, then it can sell its shares to the private individual. Then we have two major regulators now, the Nigeria Upstream Regulatory Commission and the Nigeria Mainstream and Downstream Regulatory Commission. So it means NNPC, according to the Act, would be a player, a company. That is what we mean by deregulation. Then NNPC then can continue selling its products at a below market price. That is subsidy. So what it means is NNPC as now a private company can decide to import at 150 and it sells at 142. That's so being a government company. So that's why we need to differentiate between oil and gas deregulation. So which means liberalizing the market, ensuring there is a competitive environment for all players, including government companies that wants to play in the sector. While oil subsidy means price regulation. It's just, for example, when government actually deregulated the telecommunication sector, price of copper per minute was put around 55 naira, if I remember. Then it reduced. It got to a time it was fully liberalized to say telecom can charge whatever they like to charge. So at that point you have price fixing, that is subsidy. At the point you have participation of more than more players in the market, that is deregulation. I think my colleagues can add to it.
So essentially, let me add to what Shaks has said about NNPC being a player. It's just to set a competitive pace for other players. For example, NNPC imports at 150 and is selling 140. If you want to buy fuel, right, you look for where it is cheap. So if you set that kind of pace and say, okay, I'm selling 140, others are selling 150, everybody will want to come and buy for you. And other players will want to reduce their price. So NNPC being a player will just set a competitive pace for others to follow. So it's not really subsidy, but it's just, I want to set a pace for the market to make it more competitive. Instead of I buy at 150, I sell at 150. But when I set a lower price, other people want to follow suit.
Well, as much as we try to differentiate the two, I believe they are one. They are the same. There is no argument.
Twins.
Well, identical twins for me.
Or
they are
Siamese
two different
twins.
Maybe something that route. But for me, the PIA as passed is actually very rich. However, with so many limitations here and there, we know anything human-made will have one limitation or the other.
Of course.
But the PIA is rich in its propagation of law. Even concerning the deregulation, so many deregulation has been done in the PIA.
So we think the problem is implementation.
Subsidy removal is explicit in the PIA, and all of these issues, but we now have another face of the issue, which is implementation. And what are the things that drive the implementation? It is the sense that makes the decision. Is it the politics that makes the decision or the economics of it? So, and what we see in this part of the world is the politics makes the decision, not the economics. But on the issue of subsidy, I would like to
let's stay there a little bit.
Go too deep, like my colleagues have explored a lot of deregulation. But in terms of subsidy, I believe everybody knows what to do. There are so many things that is wrong, that is staring at us in our faces that we feel the government can handle. How, for goodness sake, will Nigeria be the 7th largest producer of oil in the world and we are importing oil? It doesn't make sense. How would you say you are an oil producing country? I'm not saying oil economy, no. Oil producing country. How will we say you are producing? How you export crude and you import
crude.
You import a finished product. So I believe there are so many things that can be done, and this idea of our management of oil product too has a lot of macroeconomic implications. So the fact that the NNPC has to be the one importing directly, it means the government needs to be giving subvention in terms of forex to NNPC to be able to get the fuel in as NNPC so desire. So this is another angle to which we can look at it. So if we are able to remove that aspect of pressure on our forex, we know to some extent we are managing forex. And why can't we get our refineries working? We are for a long time, the government out there is almost every year we have seen the government putting so many things in place. I am marking certain amount in place to revitalize the refineries. But what we see is that every year they keep on recording that the refinery is not producing or they are producing below capacity. So one of the things that comes to mind is, why can't you privatize these refineries? Just like we have done for the NNPC, I believe we should take it a step further to be able to make it core private sector driven, such that everybody does business in the sector. So the big government there is doing business, not government just. So, we own the oil. We should be able to transport it from whatever place that we have it to the refinery, from the refinery to the market. So many costs involved in the process of moving out, bringing it back. All of these costs too has a way of making the price higher. So if we can remove some of these basic things that are around it, then we can now be looking, okay, how much subsidy will be left that the government can be thinking of, okay, how much harm can our subsidy inflict on the people? So I believe let's do those basics first. Get the refineries working. Whether it is Dangote you want to be doing it, let Dangote be doing it. All those transaction costs, forex situation, let's remove it. I believe with that, the government can now be having something little to deal with.
Great. So we've talked about some of the issues surrounding foreign exchange. So it's one of the key constraints to businesses in Nigeria. So it's something that across sectors, there's always this complaint about not having access to enough forex to import raw materials and to carry out their business operations. So it's a major constraint on businesses. So this brings us seamlessly to our next issue, which is tackling foreign exchange challenges in Nigeria. So what kind of reforms can we implement to help smoothen this issue in the country? So what can we do to help businesses, help the business environment and make it more pleasant for businesses to operate in Nigeria?
So for me, I think issue of FX is like issue that people don't want to discuss. People feel, oh God, so why do we need to discuss FX? So, and it's an issue that actually broadly affects everything in Nigeria. It affects our productivity. It affects the FGI inflow, as we have said. It affects the FPI. It affects how investors perceive Nigeria, the perception around Nigerian economy. It amplified the risk environment. It actually made hostile and is making hostile Nigerian business environment and investment environment. So, based on our position in this report, we actually looked at FX reform, which is a foreign exchange reform, from two perspectives. So the first is reforms around ensuring availability of foreign exchange. So that's the first one, liquidity problem. Ensuring there is adequate supply of foreign exchange at the level required by economic activities in the country. That's the first reform issues we actually looked at. And we actually looked at this issue by addressing the core issues around how government can approach this. So we actually looked around government actually leveraging the AFTA to attract more investment, forex investment into Nigeria. So Nigeria is a huge market. And at present, majority of our neighboring countries use our ports for entry ports. So when we have some of this around efficiency around this space, we can charge FX and attract more FX. So we look at the monetary authority considering removing the current capital control that is on inflow or outflow of capital. So we think when there is clarity around how I'll bring in my money, at what value, and when I'm leaving, I can push this out. If there is that guarantee for foreign investors, we can push this out. Then we also look at prioritizing non-oil FX sources. So we are looking at government actually improving non-oil exports. Nigeria, as for example, has one of the largest production of sorghum in the world. And the benefit of this is not coming to the country. And some other non-oil exports. So we are saying government should consider value addition to some of our primary agricultural exports. So why should Nigerian export raw cocoa beans? Why don't we process this? And if we do this, then we'll be selling at more higher price and attract more FX. We also looked at issue of ensuring we fixing the core issue around we fixing our local refineries. I think that's the biggest. Fixing the local refinery is the biggest issue. So we are still going back to the regulation of some other things in the oil sector. Yeah.
So it seems Faith has something to say about
the
this.
big question about FX is the exchange rate, the fair value. The amount we are paying per dollar, is it actually what we should be paying per dollar? That's a very big question we should ask.
The value of the naira.
The value of the naira. Should we be giving 570 naira per dollar, or it should be more? It should be less. So if I may ask, is the current exchange rate the amount, the fair value, the exact amount that we should be? What do we think? Should it be? So if we can answer that question in Nigeria, yes, if we can answer that question, because I see a lot of numbers and I see even the, the authority misquoting some of the numbers. Okay. One of the numbers that they put forward was that Nigeria currency is overvalued by 10%. And when we talk about overvaluation, what does that mean?
So I think it's probably maybe in their own context. In their own context, overvaluation
means that it is too high. So we should bring it down. That means we should appreciate.
The idea of overvaluing means that Nigerians are not paying enough
for a dollar.
Yeah. So, for instance, the government recognized exchange rate is 4.14, 4.15. So, some market players felt the naira should be much higher than that. I mean, the dollar should be much higher than that.
They put it at 570.
But for me, I don't think. I had this conversation with some of my colleagues, and we are still disagreeing. For me, it shouldn't be a conversation of what the fair value is. If you are looking for fair value, there is never a fair value anywhere.
No, but when we talk about fair value is not saying this is the exact amount, but saying this is what we should give. Something close. It's not going to be one for one, but it should be something. Yes, exactly. So if we are giving 570, it means 570 is not enough. Meanwhile, the official rate is at 416 or 415. And if you look at the premium, the margin between the unofficial rate and the official rate is about 90. So if I have the access to official rate, I can just be doing business by the official market. Then I go and sell at the other market, which is what is going on. And that's what is putting a lot of pressure on the naira.
The issue of being fair is just an ideal thing.
Yes.
Everybody is always expecting, this is what it should look like, based on your own personal interest. However, the most important thing I feel we should be looking at, as we have highlighted in our report, are the two issues of the market, which is availability of forex. How do we ensure we have enough forex? We have a lot of things that are draining our forex that are not supposed to, which is the refinery as we have it.
But if the value is not judged to be fair,
availability
will also come in. It will reduce availability.
I'm coming there. Like I told my colleague the other day, right? Many of these things are constituting constraint to the market. There are so many leakages in that space that are not supposed to be there. The oil importation by the NNPC is one of those huge space that is gulping a lot of forex from this country that could have helped in stabilizing the forex space. So if we can tackle this issue of availability properly, and when we talk about availability, a lot of the time people look at the CBN and we always want to blame the CBN. The CBN is not managing it well. The CBN is not doing this thing rightly and all of that. But the most important thing about forex is look at it in basic. Your forex inflow in terms of imports and other things that constitute your forex inflow, compare it to your outflow, we discover that we have more outflow than inflow.
That's the source of pressure.
So that is the basic pressure. So every other thing that is coming in, like we have it in I don't want to speak Yoruba here. So it's just
you can add that to it.
They call it harmonic insharero. It's just some part of the flesh of a beef. So it's not the problem. The problem is actually it's not the main thing. The problem is actually we being able to match our forex inflow from our different exports, from our export of goods and services, from so many services we render outside and all of that, to the imports we have. And looking at our import breakdown, a lot of the time people used to pay attention, just mention import. Go and look at it. We have over 60% of our imports in intermediate goods. Even the food that we are banning today, the food that people household are eating directly, is constituting less than 60% of our imports. So we need to emphasize that availability. And at the same time, while we are looking at that, we look at the pricing properly to ensure that this pricing that we are doing is not creating a speculative environment in the market. So what we see is speculation. And and for me, I believe many of these fair value that we are saying is because of some lapses that we see in the difference between the two markets. So people can actually take money from the INL and go backward to go to the black market and sell at the higher rate. Yes. But if the government can, the managers of the forex market can at least guarantee clarity about the moving in and moving out of forex, yes, people can know how they spend their money and how they can get the return. So if we're able to clear that aspect, I believe we will reduce the pressure on our foreign exchange markets.
Sounds great. So diversification, I think, is very, very important for the economy. And also, not allowing speculation to take hold of the economy is also something that the government needs to be looking at. You can get the report at www.nesgroup.org/Outlook 2022. So that's www.nesgroup.org/Outlook 2022. And also catch us up across all our socials at official NESG. My name is Oluwaseyi Vincent, and on behalf of myself and my colleagues here in the studio, do have a great one. Thank you, everybody.